am back. I got some cool comments on my my traction bar spring plate video. I'm already mumbling, but whatever. The traction bar spring plate video turned out good, I think. But as I was making it, I noticed that there was just so much more information to cover. And that video ended up being like 20 minutes long, and it could use more. So what I decided to do is make an additional video where I covered each selection, like each type, right? And as I did that, I was editing. I had made all of these configurations, as you saw in that video, and I took all these little short 1 minute, 2 minute videos maybe, and I noticed that with these things not welded, there's just some detail that's missing. So I decided, hey guys, let's just go ahead and weld these things up, and then let's remake this video. So in this video, I would like to cover a few of the options. Housing perches is one that I definitely want to cover with this. There's several different types out there. So it's really a function of show you the picture, tell you what the differences are, and that's about it. So I think that's where we're going to go ahead and start. So this is the housing perch that everybody is really used to, right? So this guy welds the housing, U-bolt goes on the side right there, just like that, holds the housing down. We'll call this a Chrysler style housing perch. We make this heavy duty 1/4 inch plate one. This is 6 inches across right there, so it's really durable. Also, it has 2 holes in it. Those holes are 1 inch apart for moving the rear end housing back on a Chevy too. Obviously, there's other applications that you could take advantage of this but this is primarily for Chevy 2s. I just go ahead and have that extra hole in it for just the sake of making the same part. So this is your conventional housing perch, the one that you would most likely see in most applications. The next perch that is maybe the next most popular is this guy. So I'm going to do a zoom in of this. I just wanted to kind of outline this rough information in the beginning of this video, because then I'm going to do a zoom in. I guess I skipped one of the reasons why I was doing this video. I got a cool comment from somebody on YouTube, and they said, hey man, like, great information, great parts, but we just can't see them. And ultimately I agree. Like I said, when I was editing it was like, okay, I could definitely see where we needed to do a zoom in. So I meant to order a set of these, but I totally forgot. So this is the GM multi-leaf. I have the bolt pattern measured on a couple of different factory perches and a replacement perch at 3.5 by 3 7/8. So the 3 7/8 would be the wide side, the 3.5 would be the narrow side. Narrow side meaning the side that the U-bolt would actually cross over the housing. So this is a GM multi-leaf. If your perch looks like this is a GM multi-leaf style perch. The next style perch that's maybe not as popular, I don't know, it's hard to say, is the Smith Racecraft perch. So I just found this picture on the website and printed it, not trying to rip anybody off, I just wanted some visual aid. I have this perch measured at 3.5 by 3.5. These guys have been making this perch for a while. They're pretty darn nice. My only gripe with them is that the fact that the bolts are welded on the inside. I had a customer with one of these housings 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that the powder coater damaged the bolt. So it was like, well, what are we going to do? The bolt's bent and it's welded to the inside of the perch is welded to the housing, and now the housing's powder coated. So it was one of those ones I was like, it would be really nice if you could repair the bolt. So anyway, if you have that perch, that's a Smith Racecraft perch. Oftentimes you know that that's the case. So last but not least is my housing perch. So this guy is the through bolt style housing perch. The studs, this is like a double shear kind of deal. You can see that this is one piece that's press broke at 290s. And then you can see that there's an additional doubler. It's through the inside. I guess it's kind of hard to see. I'll do a zoom in as I break each piece down. And it crosses over. So you basically have 2 C's that clamshell together like that. And then you have these pieces of DOM round tube that weld in there. What I ended up doing was making this pattern. The pattern in this guy is just the same as the U-bolt pattern for all of the rest of the stuff. This keeps it easy. What's nice is when you change housing sizes, 3, 3.25, 3.5, this bolt pattern stays the same, so your traction bar spring plate stays the same. If you're using U-bolts, you know the U-bolt has to get bigger by however much the housing is bigger. This guy gets bigger, this guy gets bigger, this bolt pattern has to get bigger too. So it's worthwhile considering the fact that maybe you already have these, or you already have Calvert, and you're going to change to a new housing. Say you've got a 10 bolt in your car. Like a really popular swap is swapping out an old 10 bolt for a 8.8. 8.8s are 3 1/4. So you already have these pieces. Well, that could potentially lead down the road of the U-bolts being wrong, this bolt pattern being wrong. Why not just go this route, right? This gives you the option too. They're measured from basically the face of the housing right here to there. So it's just how far up the housing is moved. So through bolt housing perch, standard Chrysler style perch, Smith Racecraft perch, GM multi-leaf perch. So I'm going to leave off at that spot. I'm going to cover the different rod ends. I'm going to cover all the variations of these spring plates one by one, but the camera is going to be zoomed in and you won't get to see this loveliness. So that's where I'm going to leave. That's where I'm going to leave off the intro to this video and my little bit of spiel about housing perches. I figured I would start off with the simplest possible traction bar spring plate you can buy. So this guy is no shock mount location. You can see it's the base of it is one piece. It's been press broke on either side. The tie down is a standard feature on all of these traction bar spring plates. Which I think I said in the other video as well. But so this particular plate has a standard U-bolt pattern. So this is the standard U-bolt pattern fits 3-inch to 3 1/4 housing, or 3-inch to 3 1/4 axle tube diameter, right? So that's going to fit basically all the quick performance type 9-inch stuff that's out there, all the 10 bolt stuff, all of the 12 bolt stuff, and then the 8.8 stuff. So like if you're going to go do a swap from a Explorer, right? That's a pretty popular swap. So those Explorer axle tubes are 3 1/4. This is the standard pattern that'll get you done. Every single one of these plates that you've seen in the last video and in the beginning of this video, you can order in any of the 4 housing perch styles that I mentioned. It's just a function of which one you have. Let's get it identified, and then that way you get the right parts. So standard features for these no shock mount plates, gussets on either side. This helps to turn this outer edge into a I-beam. The traction bar location is fully welded all the way around, up and down in there. You got your 1/2-inch bolts for using a 3/4 by 1/2-inch rod end. So if you had like an Assassin bar, or if you wanted to upgrade your Caltrac bar to have more adjustment holes, and then you know, that's an easy deal. I stock the rod ends around the website, and I have bolts. Or if you're just staying with your Calvert rod end and bolts, there's the accompanying piece. So these two plates are the same but opposites of each other, right? 1/2-inch holes, 3/4 holes, and they have those standard feature pieces on here. So on any of the shock mount ones, the shock mount will have a big gusset on it, and then it'll also still have these little gussets. So yeah, there you go. So this is the most basic plate you can order. It adds plenty of adjustment, adds this tie down. I've had plenty of guys order this guy just for the add-on of the tie down. So let's move on to the next style plate. So we're sticking now with these standard style shock mounting. See that it's just like a 1/2-inch bolt. Here is a Calvert plate just for demonstrational purposes. You can see that puts you in the spot to have your shock in the same location. So this one has 1/2-inch holes, has a Crossmember tab. The more standard one, so if we were going to replace this guy, we would be replacing it with this guy. 3/4-inch holes to match that. Here's that big triangle gusset like I was talking about. Goes all the way to that up to that bottom edge, because remember, we're looking at these upside down. And then there's your tie down standard on there. Nice heat affected zone in that 1/4-inch plate. Got that additional side gusset for adding that rigidity. And then, as you can tell, we'll just flip this around again. I've returned. Okay, so you can see I already slid this bolt in there. So that gives you an idea that bolt location that Calvert supplies right there I went ahead and just used that same location because that makes this a straight swap over. You don't have to worry about the shock being offset differently or some kind of issue there. So, I mean, I know that these are, let's just slide this bolt back out right here. So then when you look at them from the side, the bolt holes this way are also this. So this hole for the Calvert guy is this center hole right here. So that makes it so this is a straight swap over. So say you really just, your shock length is kind of goofy, you need to add some shock length, or you need to manipulate the shock ride height position. This gives you all these additional holes above what Calvert has given us. So great idea on their part. I think it's great. I think it's gotten a lot of guys by for a long time, but now that we're doing more stuff with extension and separation, it really just needed to be revamped. We needed some extra stuff. So there's those extra holes. So this is a very, very standard plate that I sell probably the most frequently. It's easy just to swap that, to swap that guy over. You reuse your bolt, reuse the traction bar, and then you've got those that standard. All right, so let's say you're on the website, you're ordering these traction bar spring plates up, and you've just purchased your new set of shocks. You've got some Vikings or something along those lines. I also have this bolt and spacer assembly, 3-inch long grade 8 bolt. I make this spacer in 3/4 and 1 inch, and then I have this little NAS washer that I send with it too. You can see that guy right there. It stops the bearing from gouging into the aluminum. So it saves the weight, don't have to have a steel spacer. Still got this nice, beautiful aluminum spacer, 3/4 or 1 inch. If you need more than 1 inch, then I suggest going to a better offset style plate, and then there'll be a nut and a nylock nut and a washer out there for the outside. So those guys are on the website as sold as pairs. So that's another thing too, is all traction bar spring plates are sold as pairs. I also have this spacer for a poly bushing, again 3/4 of an inch, but it's just a big wide flat surface, so it'll line up with that poly bushing nice. So I don't have that as an option on the website yet, but it will be. Maybe I'll just say this, I'm going to add it as an option, so just disregard everything I just said. And I'm terrible at making YouTube videos, so there's that bushing there, and those bushings for the bearing style shocks. So we'll just move this out of the way. Oh, the other thing is too, is that this way, if you can kind of stare down the center lines, line up that center line, this offset is the same too. So you could basically take this off and just install that, and everything will still bolt back on. Let's move that out of the way. So that was 3/4 inch traction bar holes, rear shock location, this standard gusset, and then here is the Crossmember tab. So if you're familiar with the S10 style hop-up kit, this is the type of traction bar spring plate that you would see in it. This tab, I designed this big tab to make it so I could bolt a bracket to it, and this made it so I could bolt a cross member to the bottom of the housing, and I could land anti-roll bar link tabs. So you can design any one of these traction bar spring plates to have whatever tab you want. So this is like the exact, oh, look at that, it's missing its side gusset. Wah, wah, wah. I'll have to talk to the boys about that next week, huh? But so you got your 3/4 inch holes, traction bar tab. And so you could just, this is the cool part about this, is that you could order, say you didn't know what you were going to do. You could very easily order this traction bar spring plate with this Crossmember tab with the idea that, hey, maybe I'll add something later on. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. It's up to you. So like I said in the last video, I'm kind of like specific design features. So if I know that I'm not going to use it, I'm going to get the specific gusset that makes it so I don't want to add any more weight than I have to, because here's another one that I make this Crossmember tab 1/4 inch, and I make this standard gusset 3/16. So there's a little bit of weight difference. Obviously, there's a big material difference. So I don't want to just load everybody up with stuff that they don't need. I don't like just like having random tabs just on the chassis that nothing's bolted to. Sometimes I understand you can have weight tabs or things like that, but sometimes I feel like it's just like, well, what was your plan there? So that's a piece of that. So those are the buddies right there. Here is the match, or the opposite to that one. Same Crossmember tab as stated before. Tie down that side gusset that's supposed to be there. and then the 1/2-inch holes instead of the 3/4 holes. And then imagine that you can just, you can flip the shock location to the front and have the exact same traction bar spring plate, just with the shock pointed to the front. All of the same engineering principles apply. This guy, you can see, same deal there, same center, same. There's no motivation to try to reinvent the wheel with this. This is trying to help out with existing situations and then give more options to new builds. So here's its accompanying match, 3/4 inch traction bar holes right there, 1/2-inch traction bar holes, but these are the same plates, just which rod end are you going to use, and do you want to have the option for that crossmember gusset. So next up, we'll get into the billet mount style traction bar spring plates. All right, so I'm getting sidetracked. But so we were just talking about those traction bar spring plates that have that crossmember tab. So here, check this out. I'm going to turn this thing around and then I'm going to show you. Here's the accompanying flange for bolting to that crossmember tab. So 1 5/8 ID hole right there. Uses 3/8 hardware to bolt that thing on. And this bracket, if you look at it, it's not the same all the way around. The bolt pattern is on a circle. So you can bolt it on any direction. But in order to make this thing so it goes with the orientation it's supposed to have, you're going to match up that shape. I mean, it's just as simple as put it on the side of the crossmember tab, put the bolts in, and make that thing line up. So when I do these traction bar spring plates and you order them with this crossmember tab, I send a set of these 3/16 tabs and 6 1-inch long fasteners for putting this guy together. I'm also going to cruise over to a car and show you it all assembled. All right, so we do a bunch of these traction bars and shock mounts and all these goodies, right? So here is one that's assembled. So this has got through bolt housing perches on it. It has the traction bar spring plates with the crossmember gussets, 3/4 inch holes because it has a Caltrack system on it. And then this is actually the Chevy 2 shock mount / anti-roll bar relocation setup. So, but what I wanted to show, main purpose of tangenting off of what we were just talking about, is I wanted to show you that realistically, this suspension configuration between the housing perches, the traction bar spring plates, that crossmember tab that goes with it, and the shock location, you can do this to any car that has leaf springs, because really the things that you're looking for with your leaf sprung car, what is the housing size and what is the traction bar that you're going to use and what is the final application. There's not a lot that's there. So, sorry, let's backpedal a second. The housing size and then the width of the spring. Those are really two things that really determine many of the features of the leaf spring system. So I'm going to turn this thing around and let's just look at this guy and just imagine that if you change the pin to pin, so the center lines on the springs, that this could fit in a different car. Like, it doesn't have to be a Chevy 2. It could be a insert whatever car, like a Maverick or a, I don't know, like a 56 Chevy. I guess that would be a little more of a tangent-y kind of car because of the 2-inch wide lease, but you get where I'm headed with this. So I'm going to turn this thing around and show. All right, so check it out. So really this thing is just, actually I posted a video about this guy. This old school Ford housing, big web, that so many things have been based off of and used over the past. So here are some housing perches, 2-inch, so 2 inches tall from there to there. There are some traction bar spring plates. So we've got the anti-roll bar links mounted to the crossmember that runs across. I got this cool support piece so when you jack it up right there, you know, it doesn't want to bend that tube. And then you could see how easily this could just be adapted over. Like, there's nothing to it, right? So there's actually one more over here, because why not? We're at the shop. We're doing race car stuff. So here's another example. It's exactly the same kit, right? I'm just swarmed. I have Chevy 2s everywhere. Same program. So why couldn't you just adapt this to anything? you don't have to be specific. It doesn't have to be that exact car. So even this golden piece of equipment, that's what we kind of did with that. This is actually my next YouTube feature, is getting all the data on this guy, doing a little sneak peek. So yeah, if you actually watch my YouTube content, then there you go, there's a little sneak peek at the next one. So, but anyway, the point of what I'm saying is you could see that you could adapt this to whatever you want. This doesn't have to be a Chevy 2. It can be whatever you want, right? So I happen to say Maverick because I have a Maverick behind me too. So, all right, let's back to our scheduled programming. All right, guys, we're back. So we're out in the shop. I showed you that Chevy 2 setup. Now imagine that Chevy 2 setup, you could order the spring plate, the traction bar spring plate with the shock to the back, run the traction bar, or not the traction bar, but you ran the anti-roll bar from that cross member that you put on the spring plates, run it forward, and then link the, run the arms upward to some sort of robust chassis mounting position. So there's a lot of options, and every single piece that I manufacture, which is almost all of it, like I don't make rod ends and I don't make bolts, but everything else, all these plates are cut here in-house on our high definition plasma. That's how we're able to achieve like what I consider about 80%, 85%-ish the quality of a laser. You can tell the smaller holes, like the 3/8 holes, not as good. It's just a function of the plasma's just not as fine of a stream. So, and you'll see like a little nicks from the lead in and outs and the pierce positions. It's just not 100% perfect, but it's really close. So anyway, so anything that we manufacture in-house, may it be these billet shock mounts right there, these shorter ones and those longer ones, any of these parts and pieces, I'll sell you as individual pieces. I can sell them to you unwelded. I have sent these traction bar spring plates out before unwelded because they're kind of fun to weld up, I can't lie. So if like you're a welder by trade, these pieces we run, we cut them on the plasma, and it's P&O, which means pickled in oil. So our steel plate shows up and it's clean. It doesn't have any mill scale on it. So then we plasma cut the pieces out, high definition plasma, and then I have a ceramic tumbler media. So we'll throw these guys in the ceramic tumbler, not the ceramic tumbler, we'll throw these guys in the tumbler with the ceramic media and then run them for half hour, 45 minutes, depending on the batch of parts. And they come out just beautiful. So let's actually, let's grab a piece. All right, here we go. Hopefully this will show up on camera. So this is how nice and clean this material comes out, right? So if you're a welder by trade, like, I mean, you can see that this is a pretty nice part. This is 100% cut on the plasma. This is one of these back straps that goes back there. So if you're a welder by trade, this stuff's kind of fun to weld up, to be honest, and especially if you have the couple of spacers that you need. So, all right, well, that was enough blabbing. So here we go. This is another rendition. Same traction bar spring plate, the same wrap, shocks in the front, and this is a big offset style mount. So maybe the shock's got to dodge something that's in the way. Maybe you've got an existing style chassis or something, and you need to get this shock moved. So this allows you to move the shock from this bolt hole center line to this face is approximately 2 3/4, and the shorter mount is 1 inch shorter than that. So it gives you kind of an idea of how to go. So this mount, that guy is parallel to the spring. This guy is perpendicular to the spring. So I originally designed this perpendicular mount, as I said in the other video, for those Mopar A bodies. I adapted it to a front for a specific application for a customer, somebody that needed that. And so I just never got rid of the files. So I drew the part, I made the part, we tested them, meaning we tested them that we installed them. We know that this shock mounting position works fantastic, and or shock mounting deal works perfect. You know, this is double sheared in there. So you got this 3/16 press broke part, this 1/4 inch face right there. Like, this is robust, it's good and strong, it's rigid. So there you go. So you got your Crossmember or your standard triangle gusset there, standard triangle gusset there, 3/4 inch holes, and then you've got the accompanying part plates. This one has a Crossmember tab and 1/2 inch holes, and this one also has 1/2 inch holes and a crossmember tab. And so there you go. You can just see those face to face, I guess, or side to side on the different ways that you can mount these shocks up. So I will also be including in my descriptions on each one of these style plates. So you've got perpendicular style mount, parallel style mount, front shock location, any of the 4 housing style perches, and 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch traction bar. So hopefully this is kind of making sense as to how you pick your options. So, but I'll have the engineering. These holes are 5/8 centers. So each time you move this set of holes, you move the shock 5/8 of an inch. So there's quite a bit of movement there. I'm going to go ahead and also put these in as e-drawing type files. So you'll be able to grab these files, bring them, import them in, look at them in 3D space, and then you can break out the tape measure inside of that 3D space and actually measure these things. I will supply measurements too in each individual circumstance. I'm going to go from the center. I'm going to use this center pin. So center pin to this center line, and then you got to decide which shock mount you want there, and then the offset this direction as well, this way to this way. So that's basically where it's at in XY positioning in accordance to that center pin, and then the Z will be there too. So I will use as if the plate was sitting on the ground, center from this hole down to the table right there. So you'll have lots of data to figure out what plate works for you the best. So we've now covered all the front shock mount positions, and from the standard style shock to these billet mount style shocks, and perpendicular and parallel. So let's move on to the next configuration. Okay, next up, this is all about rear shock mount locations with this billet mount. So all the same distances, features, they're all the same between the front and the rear mounts. This bracket is the same. This bracket that you can choose is the same. If you flip the perch over, the housing perch over, basically the front shock location would just have these pieces flipped around and welded in the opposite way. All the offsets are the same, all the options are the same, all this stuff is the same. It's very, very much so modular. But I did want to show, so we've got a perpendicular style mount here. We've got a parallel style mount here. 3/4 inch traction bar, standard gusset, crossmember gusset, perpendicular, 3/4. Then we've also got a 1/2 inch standard perpendicular. So you can see how modular this is. This is the same base piece, just with variations welded to them. So you got either your 1/2 inch traction bar or your 3/4 traction bar. You've got a standard style triangle gusset or this crossmember style triangle gusset. And the same goes for the parallel style mount. And last but not least in this matchup, so I'm going to move these guys out of the way. I made this mount for a guy a while ago. I was looking to make something that had a lot of adjustment. And so this bracket uses this 4-bolt pattern. I make this billet mount for my for the anti-roll bar kit for the A-body Chevelles. And so I can only offset the shock so much. And so basically what I ended up doing is making this mount. This bracket is 1 inch tall, so you've got 1 inch of space away, and then you've got 325 thousandths worth of additional space that's going on here. So you're about 1 3/8 inches of offset from the back of this plate. So that spreads the gap, or splits the gap, between this 3/4 inch spacer. Remember that this is for the poly bushing. This 1 3/4 inch offset spacer, this 2 3/4 offset spacer. Now you've got 1 3/8, and realistically, this is just a 1/2 inch stud. We can change this out to be 1.5 inches or so. So you can see how we've got different sets of spacings. If you went to 1 3/4 inch, it wouldn't make any sense. You could just do it like that. unless you really were after a lot of shock mounting positions. So this shock mount, you can flip around and go upwards, or you can go downwards. This is the biggest amount of drop that I can put in the plate without being just this obnoxious bracket, because you can see that these sets of bolts right here, that's what makes this good. So you can see that the center line of the stud is actually lower than that bracket. So there's a lot of adjustment that you can get out of these. So same deal. This is I have to come up with a name for this. I really don't even know what to name it, because I call these ones, this is a rear shock location billet mount, rear shock location billet mount perpendicular. I don't know what to call this one. Like, maybe call it ultra adjustable. That just seems silly. I had to come up with something, but I have all the designs for this. Same deal. Whatever bolt pattern you want here. Standard tie down there. This is the only one that I haven't done as a front shock location. If you wanted it, it's just a function of me moving the little cutout, which dictates the position, and making this guy as a front. So if you wanted a front, I can definitely accommodate that. So I'll put that also in the description on the website when I do that. So here's a whole nother plethora of the billet shock mount style traction bar spring plates and all their varying styles with all their varying options that you can buy. So we're going to move on to last but not least, but the new body style truck style traction bar spring plates that I made specifically for an anti-roll bar shock mount kit that I make that's not on the website that I really should add to the website. So moving forward. All right, last but not least, new body style truck, meaning like the 99 to 13 or 99 to maybe even 17 or 18. Can't say that for sure on the on when the last year is. I think it's 18. Let's just call it 18. But those trucks have the springs to the outboard side of the frame rail. So if you want to mount the shock to the traction bar spring plate, it's a pretty good reach to get the shock past that side of the frame rail, right? So make it so you can mount it off the spring plate and then also be inside the frame rail. So AJ Dean lives in Texas now, but he had a single cab truck, and he had us build the very first one. So we did this traction bar, we did slider mounts, we did the anti-roll bar / shock relocation, and my goal was to keep the shock on the spring plate, because he was in this zone where he was moving ride height, he was changing lots of things. He wanted to have as much adjustment as he could. But what ends up happening is if you mount the shock to the housing and then you put a lowering block on it, or you're moving some things like that, it also manipulates the shock height. So if you have the traction bar spring plate with the shock mount in it, now all of a sudden you can throw a 1-inch block in there. You could put a through bolt style housing perch like over there. You put one of those guys on there and drop the truck or the car an inch or half an inch or an inch and a half, whatever needs to happen. Since the shock is connected to the traction bar spring plate, the ride height of the shock is unaffected by the ride height of the housing. So I like that much better than having the shock on the housing. So that's my spiel. So I wanted the shock on the traction bar spring plate that would aid AJ to be able to move the ride height around and get the truck where he needed it to be. So that's where this came from. But I knew that moving the shock that far inboard, I was going to be somewhat I was going to have to add to the plate to get it to move over. So if we grab this plate right here, oh, we got to get the right one. Let's get this one. Okay, there you go. So if you kind of look at that dead on, is that showing the video? Sure does. You can see how much more I move the shock over. So this has the same amount of material that my normal billet mount would have. This has significantly more because I moved that whole apparatus, the whole shock mounting position, had to move that guy out there and combine it with this long mount in order to get that shock to reach. So this plate is its own thing. It doesn't share the widths and the spacing, not spacing, but it doesn't share the width and the length of the other plates. It's more robust because I knew I was going to move the shock so far. So this guy got your setup there. So same modular billet shock mount, but this plate is bigger this way by 1/2 inch because this guy is bigger because that shock is way further out. I just needed a more robust mounting platform because of how much I knew I was trying to push that piece out there. So you can also tell an NBS mount, this side gusset has arc in it, whereas the other ones have an arc, but it's going the opposite direction. So that's one easy way to tell that. So this is really just about moving the shock way far inboard on a truck. It was specifically for a truck, so just from the larger nature of all of the parts and components, I made a larger traction bar spring plate to match that nature of that. So, but the same thing applies. We can do these, U-bolt 3 inch to 3 1/4. Any of the housing perches apply. 3/4 inch holes there. 1/2 inch holes here. It's all the same. It's just specifically that this outline, right? This mounting platform is for this NBS truck. So hopefully that covers it because that's all of the style plates. These are the rod ends that you can expect to get from a Calvert assembly. So you can't really, almost can't tell. Maybe I can get it. A little bit of metal sound, right, on that rod end. So it's just a metal-to-metal rod end. It's nothing fancy. They seem to hold up just fine. They now have a grease zerk in them, which I haven't seen. I don't know that I've seen a set with a grease zerk in it, but there you go. So here's the bar that I just pulled directly out of the Calvert box. So here is a. So we'll just go ahead and. I get these. Just FYI, I get these 4130 rod ends from Rod End Supply. I have a wholesale account with these guys because I buy just massive quantities of them. They hold up good. They're nice rod ends. So here you go. So this is the rod end that I supply, so you can see. Drops in there. Remember from the rod end video, the 3/4, 3/4, 7/8 wide, it will not fit in the 1/2 inch one. So I threaded a 1/2 inch one in that side just so you can see. It goes right in there. So here's the Calvert rod end. Right there. Here's the Rod End Supply rod end. And then here is the 1/2 inch guy that just went in there. So this is what I was talking about. So we can just unthread this rod end. I think I'm actually going to have to, I got to unthread this one. Because this guy is the left. All right, so there, that goes there. And this is the Calvert stuff. That threads right in there. And then here's the 1/2 inch one that you can upgrade to if you so decide. Threads right in as well. So there you go. I figured I'd just like touch on that a little bit. It's just another feature. These rod ends I have on the website. You can buy them. That's it. So I feel like that's most of the information. Maybe there's more. I don't know. Leave me a comment. I try to cover it all. It's harder than it sounds. All right. That concludes the video. I feel like I covered a lot of information. I've been at this for 3 hours now, which is crazy. I don't know where 3 hours went. But I've been here for 3 hours. I've been playing with this stuff, trying to get shots kind of right and taking notes, trying to figure out like, hey, let's make sure we cover all of the information. So hopefully this answered all the questions. I went through that rod end demonstration. You can upgrade your CalTrack bar to have those nice 4130 Teflon lined rod ends. You can get them directly from the website. I have the bolts, so you could get your traction bar spring plate instead of that 3/4 inch hole with that Calvert rod end. Order a set of rod ends from me, and or from anybody for that matter. They're just rod ends. There's not a huge markup in rod ends. I'm not getting rich selling rod ends, but I have them for your convenience, I have the bolts, I have the washers, I have nylocks, I have everything. I could dial you in. So you can always upgrade your spring plate to those 1/2-inch holes. It looks nicer, has more adjustment, probably saves a little bit of weight, although I've never weighed it, so I couldn't say for sure. But no doubt that big old honking 3/4-inch bolt is heavy. So, but that's it. So hopefully this helps you in your next endeavor, moving the shock, changing the traction bar around, adding some leverage. Hopefully this helps out, and it's been fun. Like, subscribe, and until the next time, I'll catch you guys later.